Anarchism could be defined as a philosophy, a way of life or thinking that stresses that the individual is basically good. Individuals differ, and each individual needs freedom of expression. And this can be obtained without government. That is, it goes back perhaps to Rousseau's idea of primitive societies and the fact that government was formed only by a social compact. But I think to anarchists, the social compact would be a very free or loose one.
The term was first coined by Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, who was a French working man in the early 19th century. He coined the term anarchism, and one of the most famous quotes by him is that property is theft.
We're in the stacks of the Labadie collection, which is one of several renowned collection in the Special Collections Library. It's a collection devoted to social protest, and its focus on anarchism makes it, I suppose, the best known in this hemisphere of such collections. But it also has notable strengths in socialism, communism, other forms of political protest, civil liberties, especially connected with liberation for black people, and much coverage of social scenes such as the 60s, the counterculture, and going through to contemporary movements like women's liberation, gay liberation, animal liberation.
Some famous anarchists are Emma Goldman, Alexander Berkman, Benjamin Tucker, Voltairine de Cleyre, and of course Joseph Labadie. Labadie himself was a printer, and so he had his own printing press and was able to publish his own writings, essays, poetry on anarchism or anything he wanted. There was also at that time a huge lecture circuit, and that's how people found out about different political movements and ideologies, and sometimes hundreds or thousands of people would attend these lectures.
Joe Labadie had newspaper columns too. Sometimes they appeared in a variety of papers that had nothing to do with anarchism, just general papers, because he was an entertaining person who I think had anecdotes to feather out his ideas, and who had a humorous touch often too. He could express himself very well, especially for a person who never had much formal education. He was a self-made man, you could say. Very little formal education. Becoming a printer helped him a great deal to expound and clarify his ideas, the newspaper environment. He was not an original thinker as far as theory went. He had his own individual views on every question that came up. For example, he would differ sharply from Benjamin Ricketts Tucker, who was the most influential person in his individualist anarchist dream. But he was simply what I would say, a good expositor, clear and eloquent, of anarchist ideas, of what he thought would be good for the world and would enrich the life of any individual who chose to think that way and live that way.
Some of the misconceptions are that anarchists are violent by nature, bomb throwers, which they're not. In fact, most anarchists are nonviolent, although you get a broad spectrum of people who believe that the government should be overthrown by violent means. But on the other hand, there are also anarchists who believe in nonviolence. Historically, the Paris Commune of 1871, the Spanish Civil War of 1936, the Mexican Revolution 1910, all had anarchist influences. Today, the radical environmentalist movement, the Zapatista movement down in Mexico, and the current vegetarian movement and animal rights movements are influenced by anarchism.
Joe Labadie was convinced that his ideas were liberating ideas, that people listening to them would have fuller lives, richer lives.